With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories: Bridging the Gap, CCSA's role in climate resilience financing. 2 deceased, 4 seriously injured in FT Williams highway traffic accident. Associate Professor and Financial Advisor Dr. Terrence Martin tackles tax reform in St. Kitts and Nevis. CCSA advocacy strategies in the wake of COP29. CXC honors top achievers at National Cultural Center Awards ceremony. Opposition party in Guyana continues to decry cash grant registration process. Internationally, vote to impeach South Korea's president fails after boycott by ruling party MPs. Now, the details. As discussions from COP29 highlighted the urgent financial needs for small island developing states SIDS, the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator CCSA is positioned to play a crucial role in bridging the gap between these nations and potential investors. Raquel Moses, CEO of CCSA, and Cheryl Senhouse outlined their vision during a recent press conference, underscoring the importance of targeted initiatives to enhance climate resilience. Moses emphasized that mobilizing finance for climate initiatives requires collaboration and innovation.
And that's what we do all day, every day. We are facilitating public-private partnerships. We are engaging the private sector and coming together with public sector objectives and bringing those connections together. And in terms of our KPIs, that is our highest performing KPI, is making those public-private connections and bringing people to the table to have those collaborations, to make sure that where private sector is willing and able to get involved, that we are doing that. We do that through our investor forum. We do that on an ad hoc basis. We do that through the events that we host. We do that through the main things that we implement.
The CCSA is dedicated to creating platforms that connect Caribbean nations with investors keen on supporting sustainable projects. This includes hosting investor forums and networking activities, particularly in the lead-up to COP30. Senhouse detailed the specific strategies CCSA plans to employ to enhance engagement with financial institutions. She mentioned the establishment of a National Advisory Committee, which would include CEOs from regional banks focused on leveraging their capital for climate action.
We want to kind of leverage that recognition there and their commitment as an organization to provide them with access to projects that may suit their particular risk appetites, for early investment and for support both from the public side but also from the commercial side in terms of providing capital to entrepreneurs who are operating in sectors or subsectors that are focused on climate action and resilience.
By fostering these relationships, CCSA aims to secure necessary funding for climate resilience initiatives critical for SIDS. The conversation also pointed to the need for innovative financing mechanisms, including debt swaps and blue-green climate-resilient bonds. As the advocates outlined, finding creative solutions for sustainable financing is crucial for addressing the challenges posed by climate change and economic instability in SIDS.
Collaboration and innovation and commitment will guide us toward a sustainable and equitable future for the Caribbean and beyond. The challenges may be great, but so is our determination to overcome them.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has alerted the media regarding a traffic accident that occurred on the FT Williams Highway in Bastyr, St. Kitts between 11:30 p.m. and 12 a.m. on December 6, 2024. The accident resulted in the deaths of 2 persons, Sheeda Jarvis and Malik Williams, both pronounced deceased at the scene. 4 other persons sustained serious injuries and are currently in the Joseph and France General Hospital. Additional details will be provided in a subsequent report. St. Kitts and Nevis is at a pivotal crossroads in its economic journey, primarily regarding how it generates revenue for national development. With the heavy reliance on the Citizenship by Investment (CBI) program historically giving the nation a substantial cash flow, recent trends suggest an urgent need to reassess and reform the current tax framework to ensure fiscal sustainability. The urgent call for tax reform emphasized by the International Monetary Fund (IMF) is evident. What measures could be implemented to achieve a diversified revenue base while minimizing public backlash? The IMF's guidance is clear. The organization noted that in the medium term, a holistic overhaul of the taxation framework will be essential to reduce dependency on CBI and maintain fiscal space. The suggested directive underscores the need for a gradual yet comprehensive shift in the government's approach to taxation, from property taxes to income tax and the evaluation of existing tax expenditures. The call for reform is not simply about filling the government coffers. It is about establishing a fair and equitable system that can withstand the fluctuations of international markets and the vagaries of CBI revenues. As the host of WINN FM's Money Matters pointed out during a discussion on tax reforms, government officials, particularly the Prime Minister, are palpably fearful of public's reaction to tax increases or changes.
Now, reform must have balance and these realities while addressing fiscal needs. In all of it, transparency is vital. Citizens need to see how their tax dollars are being used and whether it is to upgrade schools or improve healthcare or build roads. Without trust, even the best intentioned reforms will struggle to gain support. So public engagement is key. Tax reform is not just a government initiative, it's a national conversation. At least it should be. It's about understanding that while taxes aren't enjoyable, they fund the services and infrastructure we all depend on.
Any administration should consider several key reforms to diversify government revenue streams effectively. Implementing a progressive property tax structure based on property value brackets could generate significant revenue from higher value properties while protecting low-income homeowners. A caller to the program, accountant and financial expert Schneidman Warner, lamented the 0.25% property tax the Federation has had since 2006.
Yeah.
And the problem with it is that, like so many, well, like all the taxes we impose in St. Kitts, we don't revisit them from time to time. The current property tax structure was put in place in 2006, I believe. Prior to that, we operated a system whereby the property was, the tax was based on the rental potential of the property. So a property that was deemed to collect $1,000 in rent a month would pay a higher property tax than one was deemed to collect $800 a month in rent. They got rid of that and said, let's replace it based on the value, the market value of the property. They set the rate at 0.25%. Now, the first $80,000 is exempt. So you have a property with a $300,000 market value, you pay tax on $220,000. The problem with that, however, is twofold. One, the $80,000 exemption that was imposed in 2006 is unchanged 18 years later. What $80,000 could have bought in 2006 cannot be bought with $80,000 today. So the exemption should be increased at least every 5 to 7 years in order to compensate for the increased cost of building a property.
Public education campaigns explaining the rationale behind taxing luxury properties can mitigate potential backlash. A tiered income tax structure could ensure that high earners contribute a fairer share without overly burdening those with lower incomes.
But the biggest one that will piss people off, Kevin, is reintroducing a progressive personal income tax, right? But that's going to be for a further conversation. You know, that's been tossed around over the past number of years. But, you know, having a personal income tax actually then allows for a lot more tax incentives in the form of credits and deductions, etc. So we need comprehensive reform.
This initiative could be positioned alongside public campaigns outlining how these funds will enhance crucial services such as healthcare and education. Conducting a thorough review to eliminate tax incentives that yield minimal social and economic benefits can recover lost revenue and promote fairness in the business environment.
Doing cost benefit analysis on different tax incentives and strategies and schemes, recovering revenue from loss, ineffective tax breaks, etc.
Reducing VAT exemptions for non-essential goods while maintaining exemptions for necessities could bolster revenue without disproportionately affecting lower income households.
Expanding the value add tax base, that's one that people won't like. You know, the government has reduced the basket of goods already.
Taxes on harmful activities can align with global environmental goals while generating new revenue streams. According to Dr. Martin, initiatives should target high consumption or waste-producing industries using the proceeds for visible environmental improvements. Special immigration programs targeting skilled workers and entrepreneurs can help broaden the tax base while alleviating some reliance on the CBI. Expanding opportunities for digital nomads to live and work in the Federation can also boost tourism and the economy. Dr. Martin proposed incentivizing skilled digital nomads, people who work remotely from anywhere in the world, to come and live in the Federation.
In COVID, we had Barbados and Antigua taking the lead when it comes to digital nomads, incentivizing US-based Europeans to move to their countries in order to work, to escape the hustle and bustle by offering them some sort of tax base, right? But what happened was, what that did, it expands the tax base that we had through an increased population and productivity. And even though we would need a massive amount of people to come in order to really reduce our dependence on CBIs at start, because these people then can incentivize their friends and family, which will bolster tourism. And guess what? We collect more taxes there. And I was really surprised that more Caribbean countries and economies like ours did not go into this creation of a digital nomad visa with some sort of tax contributions, because here automatically they're going to pay 17% on VAT, right? They won't be the ones. And they're going to go to the most expensive supermarket because they want their types of products. They ain't going to buy nothing that they don't know. Right, so they're going to hit up Rams in Buckley's, maybe Value Mart or whatever, and they will contribute to the local economy. And obviously, some would start businesses as well and offer hiring. So I think that was something that we dropped the ball on coming out of COVID, but it's still not too late to develop a program that targets skilled entrepreneurs and remote workers, especially as we're building out a creative economy.
Investing in digital tools and capacity building within the tax administration can enhance compliance and collection, reduce tax evasion, and simplify taxpayer processes. A significant change facing these proposed reforms is public perception. Historical reactions to tax changes have often been met with skepticism, rooted in the long-standing view of taxes as burdensome. As noted during the WINN FM discussion, there are public backlash and outrage concerns. Public forums and informational campaigns must facilitate understanding and the acceptance of tax reforms. Transparency in the use of tax revenues, demonstrating clear benefits from enhanced public services, could aid in smoothing the path for these changes. Dr. Martin emphasized the necessity of balancing fiscal realities with public expectations.
Reform isn't about punishment, at least it shouldn't be. It's about creating balance and sustainability.
This perspective recognizes that while implementing new taxes or reforms may appear daunting, they are essential for ensuring a functioning government capable of effectively serving its citizens. The call for comprehensive tax reform in St. Kitts and Nevis is not merely a fiscal obligation, but an opportunity to reshape the country's economic landscape. A diversified revenue system would safeguard against the vulnerabilities associated with the CBI and provide a foundation for sustainable growth. As articulated by the IMF, action taken today can pave the way for an equitable and prosperous future.
Tax reform doesn't have to be immediate. It can take time. So in 10, 20 years, we are a well-oiled machine, right? But we put in these things in place so that they can implement over time. When the US implements a tax change or Europe implements a tax change, it's over 5 years, it's over 10 years, it's not overnight. So this is where the shock and awe comes in. If we do these things gradually over time, then I think you will definitely lower the burden on people.
Through careful implementation, public engagement, and transparent governance, St. Kitts and Nevis can emerge as a resilient economy and a model for equitable growth in the Caribbean. The future will depend on collective efforts to forge a path that balances the needs of citizens with the economic imperatives of a changing world. In light of the inadequate climate finance commitments made during COP29, the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, CCSA, is poised to implement targeted advocacy strategies aimed at addressing the unmet needs of small island developing states, SIDS. During a recent press conference, Raquel Moses and Cheryl Senhouse outlined their approaches to engaging various stakeholders and mobilizing resources essential for climate adaptation. Senhouse highlighted the importance of information and data in crafting effective advocacy strategies. She described the CCSA's Climate Smart Map as a key tool that aggregates data on risks, potential solutions, and economic indicators, helping to clarify where financial resources are needed most.
Quantification of the issue, I think, is an important first step in understanding where we need to go next.
She explained, emphasizing that informed decision-making is crucial for effective climate action. In addition to leveraging data, CCSA aims to forge partnerships beyond traditional government and multilateral frameworks. The organization recognizes the private sector's significant role in filling the funding gaps left by public finance.
Enabling engagement with the private sector, bringing them to the table, encouraging partnership with the public sector, with entrepreneurs, supporting the direction of finance that is available through their philanthropies to support climate action, as well as helping them achieve their own sustainability goals through partnerships, research, development of solutions, ensuring the embedding of robust sustainability and climate goals within their business models, I think is an important step and is a crucial role that we as an organization play to support the advocacy for our Caribbean nations.
Stated Senhouse, who noted that partnerships with entrepreneurs and businesses could stimulate additional funding for climate initiatives. Moses echoed this sentiment, emphasizing that engagement with non-state actors would be vital for SID's success. She underlined the necessity for shared responsibility and collaboration in the fight against climate change, stating,
Climate action is bigger than any one economy, any one country, and any one leader.
The CCSA's advocacy efforts will be centered around fostering dialogue and partnerships that facilitate innovative funding mechanisms. The conference attendees discussed how these strategies will be implemented before COP30, which is scheduled for next year in Brazil. Both advocates are committed to ensuring that SID's voice and needs are respected and integrated into climate financing frameworks, setting the stage for more effective interventions. In regional news, CXC honors top achievers at National Cultural Center Awards ceremony. DBS St. Lucia has the details.
14 students from Grenada, Jamaica, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago took the stage to accept their awards in various categories at the CXC's 2024 Top Awards ceremony. Every year, the event is hosted in one of CXC's participating countries, and this year it was held in St. Lucia, which welcomed the region's brightest minds.
While we reflect on the achievements we celebrate today, let us also look to the future. It is our collective responsibility, parents, educators, policymakers, and the Caribbean Examinations Council, to create an environment that nurtures talent, fosters innovation, and ensures that every child in the Caribbean has access to quality education. Let this evening's celebration inspire us to work together to build a region where academic excellence is not the exception, but instead the norm.
CXC Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley emphasized his hope to celebrate a greater number of students from the region who achieve excellence, particularly in the crucial subject areas of mathematics and English.
It is with these considerations in mind that we have been agile in our response to produce a generative AI policy for the regional secondary education system. We are in the process of fine-tuning this policy by engaging multiple stakeholders' consultation across the region, and our council will have the opportunity to interrogate how we plan to have this dynamic policy document adopted and effectively implemented across our schools.
This year's most outstanding candidate in the CAPE examination was Anaya Couchman, while David Chowty was recognized as the most outstanding student in the CISEC examinations. Both students are from Queen's College in Guyana. In the CCSLC examinations, the most outstanding students were Yeshua Douglas and Udia McCoy from Grenada. For the DBS News World, I am Zane Romulus.
Opposition party in Guyana continues to decry cash grant registration process. Guyana News Source reports.
The opposition People's National Congress reform continued to decry the process being used to register persons for the government's one-off $100,000 cash grant for Guyanese, saying the government is trying to create a parallel system to frustrate citizens when it could have used existing database material to provide the grant via direct bank transfers and cash rather than using those checks. PNC Reform Treasurer Elson Lowe told a news conference that a move by the government to do registration of persons who are already in its system highlights poor planning.
Calling the government to cease the unnecessary registration process and for payments to be made where possible through the same mechanisms that it currently regularly used. This will remove the need to needlessly process over 50% of recipients and thereby minimize the burden on the system and the frustration and time wasting of citizens. These approximately 300,000 persons need not stand in line either to register, to collect checks, or to deposit checks in the bank.
According to the PNC Reform Executive, the government has failed to utilize data that it already has and seems to be complicating a process.
The government has failed to exploit the fact that over 150,000 public servants and pensioners receive monthly payments through an established government scheme. Approximately another 150,000 private sector workers are also registered in the tax system. These 300,000 workers and pensioners and tens of thousands of other Guyanese have tax identification numbers, which are unique identifiers. Furthermore, most citizens already have ID cards. Let us also note that hundreds of thousands have bank accounts and could therefore receive payments by direct government transfer into those accounts.
The government has already rolled out the cash grant initiative, with Vice President Bharat Jagdeo declaring that the current focus is on 5 regions, 1, 4, 7, 8, and 9, as well as pensioners and public servants. Mr. Jagdeo clarified also that persons who miss the registration process will still be able to benefit from the cash grant at a later time. But the PNC Reform believes that the current process is already creating some level of confusion.
Not surprisingly, complaints from pensioners, public servants, persons with disabilities, shut-ins, and other citizens are increasingly mounting. We are seeing long waiting times, inadequate and conflicting official communication, inept operations at centers, and some registered persons not receiving their checks. The elderly should not be standing in the hot sun for prolonged periods, or at all. And pregnant women and people with disabilities should be similarly catered for.
A number of communities across the country will continue the registration exercise this weekend.
We now bring you these international reports.
Now, in South Korea, an impeachment vote to remove the president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has failed, with members of Mr. Yoon's own governing party boycotting the proceedings. For now, to Seoul and to our correspondent there, Jean Mackenzie. Jean, just tell us what happened here with this vote.
Yeah, we're just outside the voting chamber now, so in the centre of the Parliament Hall, and we've just found out that actually this vote has not been able to go ahead. It has been a dramatic day here in the Parliament. Actually, we can hear people just behind us now chanting and shouting, and that's sort of been the theme of the day. There have been so many twists and turns. To explain to you how we got to this position, it looked like the vote was going to go ahead as planned, but then the members of President Yoon's party, the ruling party, they started one by one to walk out of the voting chamber, deciding that they actually were not going to take part in this vote. They were going to boycott it instead. Now, the reason this is important is because the opposition party did not have enough votes on their own to impeach the president. They needed 8 members of the ruling party to vote with them. So when they started walking out and boycotting the chamber, there was a lot of anger here. People flooded to the doors of the chamber. They were shouting, "Traitors, traitors, go back in and vote." Now, surprisingly, a couple of the members of Parliament have come back in to cast their vote, and it looked like at one point this could swing things. But the Speaker has called it and decided that actually there are not enough members here to be able for this vote to go ahead.
And Jean, what happens next now that this motion has failed?
Well, the opposition party is certainly not going to give up here. They have said that they will keep bringing these impeachment motions until they are successful. And you also have to consider what's happening outside this building right now, which is that tens of thousands of people have travelled from all across South Korea to be here today to protest against the president and to demand he stand down. Now, they've actually surrounded the Parliament compound, which we're in at the moment. They're blocking the exits. They are furious with these MPs for walking out of the chamber. So even though his party has decided to save President Yoon, It is unlikely that the people here are going to be so forgiving, and if these protests continue to build, his position could soon become untenable.
It took a quarter of a century for members of Mercosur and the EU to hold up their hands in agreement. 25 years after initiating negotiations to join the European Union with Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay's trading bloc, Mercosur, the trade pact was finalized in Montevideo.
We are strengthening this unique partnership as never before, and in doing so, we're sending a clear and a powerful message to the world. First, in an increasingly confrontational world, we demonstrate that democracies can rely on each other. This agreement is not just an economic opportunity, it is a political necessity.
The agreement runs counter to the protectionist current promoted by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. It would create a joint market for some 720 million consumers. And like most trade agreements, its goal is to reduce tariffs and trade barriers, to make it easier for businesses on both sides to export goods. But it's far from a done deal. The accord must be ratified by all 27 members of the EU and Mercosur. And it meets strong resistance from European farmers in countries led by France, which calls the deal unacceptable. On behalf of Mercosur, Uruguay's president addressed the elephant in the room.
No one government or bureaucracy can sign for prosperity. This is an opportunity. It's up to each one of us to decide how fast this will advance, whether in our countries or the EU.
Von der Leyen says European health and food standards will remain untouched, adding that the agreement will save the EU 4 billion euros worth of export duties per year. With the agreement now signed, the hope is that the battle for its ratification won't take another quarter of a century. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
President Joe Biden's recent pardon of his son Hunter has sparked a debate about whom the president should potentially pardon and for what reasons. That debate is taking place among top White House aides, sources say, who are discussing whether preemptive pardons should be considered before Donald Trump takes office.
President-elect Trump talked a lot about retribution as a candidate.
Reuters White House correspondent Jeff Mason.
I spoke to a source who said that the White House is looking at the issue of preemptive pardons and that the conversation was sparked by people from Capitol Hill who are concerned that President-elect Trump will make good on his threats of retribution. And so that has led to this discussion, which is being spearheaded by the White House counsel, Ed Siskel, with participation as well by Chief of Staff Jeff Zients. They are looking in particular at discussing whether to issue these pardons for people who were involved in the Trump impeachment proceedings when Trump was still in office, and against those who, or for those rather, who participated in the January 6th Select Committee. So some of the names that we know that are in that bucket would include incoming Senator Adam Schiff, although he is the one who has said he does not want a preemptive pardon, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger.
Trump's pick for FBI Director Kash Patel has also vowed retribution against critics of the president-elect. According to a senior White House official, Biden is aware of the discussions, but has not participated in the wider conversation about preemptive pardons. Any decision would ultimately be Biden's to make.
The drawbacks would be the precedent that it would set, if it's even possible to do preemptive pardons, and whether or not that's something that then future administrations, including the Trump administration, might seek to apply as well.
Pardons for offenses that have not yet been charged are largely untested, but the U.S. Constitution does give a president broad pardon powers.
It's normally something that the president uses to handle cases where someone has had perhaps a sentence that the president believes is too harsh, has served his or her time already, perhaps was a nonviolent criminal. Those are things that I should add are also a separate bucket of pardons that President Biden and his team will be looking at as well.
A growing chorus of civil rights activists and lawmakers are calling on Biden to pardon people wronged by the U.S. judicial system or serving excess terms for nonviolent offenses. Here's top Democrat Hakeem Jeffries.
It has been the perspective that many of us have shared that there are working class Americans all across the country who've been caught up in an overly aggressive criminal justice system that at times has gone too far. The Biden administration is considering additional pardons moving forward. It's my suggestion that that is where the focus should be at this point in time.
A broader pardon would not be unprecedented. A year ago, Biden pardoned thousands of people with federal marijuana charges.
A centuries-old Palestinian tradition has now earned global recognition. The oldest surviving soap factory in the occupied West Bank. Touqan was established in 1872 in the heart of Nablus. Every bar produced here is a work of art, preserving Palestinian heritage.
The recognition of Nabulsi soap by UNESCO as part of the World Heritage is an acknowledgement by the global community and the necessity of preserving it.
But soap making isn't confined to factories. Using only 3 ingredients, water, caustic soda, and the key component, pure olive oil. This simple formula has been passed down through generations.
The person who taught us soap making was an elderly relative from the village of Imatin. A long time ago, around 20 or 30 years ago, she came here and made soap. When she cooked the oil, I observed how she did it, learnt the process and started making soap myself. I made it for everyone in our town.
The traditional process unfolds in several stages. The ingredients are mixed, cured, and the bars stacked into towers, where they're left to breathe. For Palestinians, this is a symbol of resilience.
This recognition is especially important given the Israeli occupation's efforts to undermine these traditional industries.
Now recognized globally, Nabulsi soap making is a living tradition, honoring Palestinian identity with every bar. Lina Abu Akleh, Al Jazeera.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were Bridging the Gap, CCSA's role in climate resilience financing, 2 deceased, 4 seriously injured in F.T. Williams highway traffic accident. Associate Professor and Financial Advisor Dr. Terrence Martin tackles tax reform in St. Kitts and Nevis. CCSA advocacy strategies in the wake of COP29. CXC honors top achievers at National Cultural Center Awards ceremony. Opposition party in Guyana continues to decry cash grant registration process. Internationally, vote to impeach South Korea's president fails after boycott by ruling party MPs. Thank you for listening.